Hello and welcome to another episode of the Meet the Translator podcast. My name is Dot and today I'm joined by Anikó, Ivar and Luciana for a chat about board game localization. In this episode we'll find out about different types of board games that need translating and what the process looks like, what skills you need for the job, the challenges, and of course lots of tips for anyone thinking of specialising in board game localization. Enjoy! Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining me on my podcast today. It's really lovely to have you all here for an episode on board game localization. So let's start with some introductions. Ivar, do you want to go first and introduce yourself, share what it is you do and how you sort of got to where you are now?
Well, my name is Ivar. Okay, I've been a player for, Actually, I started on video games when I was about 5 or 6 years old. So I'm 44 today, be 45 next month. So I've been playing for, almost 40 years. And started out with board games, with those board games, classic board games that are marketed as toys like Monopoly or the Game of Life or Risk and others, right? So, but we have started working with board games a bit more recently, it's 2016, 2017, about that. So before that, I taught English as a second language for over 10 years. And then I started translating scientific articles from Portuguese into English. And they were mostly scientific articles in the area of nursing and healthcare in general. And then after that, I moved on to novels and nonfiction. Then I have over 60 translated books that I translated that have been published so far. And then 2016, 17, we decided to put together this company, our company, and we have been working with board games since then. Not only board games, but also card games and role-playing games, so all these analog games, if we can say so. It's been interesting because we've been kind of discovering how it works, because this is a market here in Brazil that is still young. So things are still evolving. We can say that this is still the beginning of the journey for the whole country, and most of the companies here that publish board games, they are learning as they go, right? So it's been a very interesting ride so far.
Mm-hmm. And you do that together with Luciana, right?
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a sort of company name?
Our company is Rook, yes. And me and Ivar, we met a long time ago, more than 20 years ago, as friends and playing role-playing games. And then we decided to work with we worked with translations in general, but we decided to work with the specialization in board games, specific board games, not digital games, but board games. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but nowadays I study. I have specializations in English, and we teach a specialization in board games and so on. So it's very interesting for us.
Yeah, it does sound interesting because I've done a previous episode about video game localization, so I'm sort of interested to hear, how board game localization is different. And actually, it was after that episode that somebody contacted me and requested a board game episode. So I was like, oh yes, that would be really interesting. It's not an area of translation that I really was aware of and thought of. I mean, it makes sense that board games need translating, but I just had never thought of that as a as a specialism. So yeah, really interested in this.
We hear it a lot, everybody says, you translate board games? And we say, yeah. Is it an area? Yeah, we do. Is there a market for that? Yes, it does.
Can you make a living from that? No, not yet.
Not yet. But.
Not exclusively from it, but people get curious.
Yeah.
Okay, so Anikó, do you want to do a little introduction about yourself and what you do and how you got into a little bit of board game translation as well?
Yeah, so my name is Anikó Pető-Mordovski, and I'm a Hungarian translator, and I usually say that I specialize in all kinds of creative translations. So marketing transcreation is one big area that I work in, and video games is another one. And I've also done a few card games, board games, mostly party games. And this is an area that I would like to do more work in. But I came through video game localization. So one of my clients that I do video game localization for, they asked if I could work with some board game translations as well.
Okay. So can we sort of define, like, what is board game localization? What does it actually entail?
Yeah, I
don't know who wants to.
Okay, so usually when we translate a board game or an analog game, like a role-playing game, a card game, or a party game, or whatever, basically we want to make the experience of a board game session with friends or with people in a party available in a different, not just a different language, but a different culture. So we have to adapt the materials, the language, to this from one culture to the other. We don't just translate things. We have to adapt some of the phrases, some of the references, cultural references to the target audience, so they can experience the game more fully. It can be a more immersive experience for them, so they don't have to, they don't get lost in translation when they draw a card or they have to perform an action and they see what exactly is this? What exactly should I be doing? I mean, I understand this, but I don't really get the context of what exactly this thing refers to.
I guess there's like different kind of board games have different levels of how much language is actually involved in it and how important the language is. And then do you ever find that you've got times where you feel like you're basically recreating a whole new board game? Because I'm imagining something like Monopoly. Monopoly is obviously very culturally specific because it's got the street names, the place names and stuff. Like something like that, I imagine you'd have to think up a whole new game entirely. Like, do you ever find that?
Yes, especially with party games. They're often centered around language and talking and I don't know, making people guess a word. So you kind of keep the rules, but the actual game itself, the prompt, that fully needs to be localized and sometimes completely changed.
Mm-hmm. We had an experience like that recently where we had to translate into English a Brazilian party game. It was it's very specific, the jokes, the prompts that we have here, and we had to think with an international mind. Yeah, because the jokes we get here, it's not that are not the same jokes you get there. So we had to think a lot about what to use, what terms, sentences, the words, the cultural adaptation, and so on. It was a challenge, but it was very fun.
Yeah, and since you have limited space, because in this specific case, we're talking about cards, you can't explain things. You have to really change all the references. Not all the references, but most of them, especially the ones that are really, really local. And in some cases, in big countries like Brazil, for example, some references are regional. Okay, so they are not understood like a couple states over by people who did not experience that.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. We are, for example, there were references here with our former Brazilian president, and then how would people around the world know? And we are in the middle of elections, and It's crazy. We had to rethink everything. But it was cool. It was fun.
It sounds like it definitely involves a lot of creativity.
Exactly.
Both with sort of like coming up with new things, but also, like you said, the character limits, I guess you've got, or word restrictions in certain places and stuff. So, like, if you get contacted to translate a board game, which elements do you usually translate, and what kind of materials are you given, or like reference materials, to be able to then do the project typically?
Yeah, definitely the instructions need to be translated. The packaging, so the box that's in. And sometimes the elements are localized, so you would localize the board itself, but sometimes that's not happening. So, and in terms of reference material, if, for example, there is an extension that you are translating and you're working on, then you would get the previously translated materials for the base game.
We have it's the same here in Brazil. People think, oh, so you localize board games, so you receive the game in your house, so you open the box and no.
Keep dreaming.
No.
I wish.
I wish.
I would love to, but no, never happens.
Yeah, but no, never happened. So we receive the files, and we have the reference files from, as Anikó said, the basic games, if there is. But sometimes we have the franchise material. We have to research what was used in the past. For example, if you get a Lord of the Rings extension game for something, we have to get this reference from the past, not recreate a whole new vocabulary or something. We use references that were used in films or series or even literature, but we get the files and we try to research a lot. I think most of our job is to research all the time and a lot, because it's a serious part of our job to research everything.
Especially in the case of expansions, there have been problems. Not anymore, but it used to be common here for a term in a game, like a piece or components, to be translated, a mechanic to be translated a certain way for, like, for example, the base game, and then for the first, second, third expansions, the translators sometimes change. Sometimes the companies, they get other translators to work on the expansions, and there have been cases that have been, that are famous, like they're infamous, should I say, where the new translators, they did not respect the terms that were used in the first game, so they changed it, and that made players confused. Like, are they referring to the same piece? Are they referring to the same component or a new rule? Or because it sounds the same, but it has a different name. So so this results in recalls or publishing of erratas, or sometimes you have to send new components or new books or new cards to the players. And usually this process takes about a year, because they have to concentrate all the production. You have to rethink the production cycle of a product. So a card, a miniature, something has been printed, produced before, so it has to be produced again because that one had an error, and then it has to be resent to the players because of these issues. So the companies have been, here in Brazil, they have been more careful about the uniformity and of names and terms and mechanics and whatever from one expansion to the others. So we have one expansion that we worked recently. We had a lot of material that had been previously published before to work on, but this happened this year. If it had happened, for example, 3 or 4 years ago, we probably would have gotten a message. So we need references. We need to know how this was done before. And then the client will say, well, we don't have the files anymore, so you do your best, and we will try to do something here. Right? All right. But we are glad that this is not the reality down here in Brazil anymore, or mostly. Right. The studios here, since there have been many complaints by the players, so they have started to, they were forced to be more careful about what and how they publish stuff.
Mm-hmm. No, it makes sense. It's making me think of because as a subtitler, like when we have a TV series, you generally make sure that there's a lot of the time the same translator will translate every single episode in the series, because you want to make sure that you're obviously being consistent with it. But then if any mistakes come up or anything, then it's really easy for them to just go and change it a lot of the time, because if it's, you know, being streamed online or whatever, they can just go and edit, you know, the subtitle can be changed and everything's fine. But like, I hadn't actually thought about the fact that if that happens with a board game, they can't just click the fingers and change it. It's like a whole reproducing the whole game. Like, that's,
and it's usually not produced
different.
It's not printed or produced here in Brazil. Some things we do have, but mainly it's in China, so it takes a lot of time to go and reprint and stuff.
China and Czech Republic, I think the countries that have companies that are specialized in printing and producing the board game components.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I know you kind of mentioned a few already, but what other types of board games do you each translate? Like, Anikó, obviously you mentioned like party games and stuff. Like, what other sort of games do you translate?
We translate everything. We have translated from role-playing games and board games, card games, a lot of card games. There was a role-playing games, it's like new for us. We did like 2, but board games are our, we do it like daily. And I think there are no dice games yet, but like card games, they are cheaper. So the companies, like, I think they think about the value, the pricing. So I think it's what we do mostly. But we, in the beginning, last year, or since the beginning, we have been doing a lot of board games. We started in 2016 with Gloomhaven.
No, was the second project.
The second one, yeah.
The first
second
one was
project.
Gen 7.
Gen 7, yes. And Gloomhaven, but Gloomhaven was the biggest one. It's like 10-kilo box of products.
Yeah, that's a break.
Yeah, it's huge. It's enormous. I don't remember the amount of words. It was like 140, more than 140,000 words, I guess. Yeah, it's gigantic, enormous. And it's very famous here, and people like it a lot. But we worked with it for many months, and not alone, we proofread it, and in this project. We translate and we proofread it too for other translators. So it was a huge challenge, literally huge. But we do all kinds of games. We like it a lot.
We haven't done some board games. They have an app that you can download on your tablet or cell phone. We haven't worked with this specifically yet, but it might happen in the future with this component specifically. Even though we worked on games that have this. They have this feature. They request this, that people, okay, so you need a tablet or at least a cell phone on the table to get these extra contents.
Mm-hmm. My next question was going to be, how long does it take to translate a board game? But obviously, I imagine it varies massively if you've got this, what did you say, 10-kilo box board game compared to like, I don't know.
Some projects you can work like in 1 or 2 days because they are really, really short. Others, it takes months, right? It really varies.
The ones I've worked on are all quicker jobs, like card games, so that's pretty quick to translate, a few days. So I haven't had a 10-kilo box project yet. Looking forward to have one of those.
It's tough because longer projects you have to be really careful about keeping things uniform, right? Because there are sometimes several booklets or several cards and also the expansions that we talked before, and there can't be mistakes. And I mean, they can, but they're going to be costly, and somebody's going to be paying for them, right? But we have to be especially careful with these, and also some of the content on the cards. I mean, usually, for people who are not used to translating, they say, okay, so I can check with the spell checker, and it will give me the mistakes I made. Yes, that's part of it. It works. But for example, if a card says that, okay, so this player, if you have this card, if you play this card, you get +2 ships on your fleet, whatever, okay, something. And then somebody makes a mistake and types not 2 ships, but 22 ships. This breaks the game. So, and then sometimes you need to recall or need to reprint this part, and then people really pay dearly for a large board game, a large set. And then if they have to wait like months until they get these replacement cards, they're not going to be very happy, right?
Yeah. And I also say that just to make sure that everything is also logical when you translate, and the players could also follow the rules and how they have to play and the instructions. So I think that's also an important element of it.
One thing that a friend of ours pointed out, we thought, yes, this is really, really interesting. So we have been trying to do this on our work and tell people about it. Usually when you were playing a game, sometimes you have to read instructions or to read things aloud to the rest of the table, right? The text that is there in the manual, the rule book or on the card, it has to be readable. Like a person has to be able to say that, so the words can't have like conflicting syllables or double meanings, unless it's intended. But that's something else. But so the text has to be ready to be read aloud to a table, and we have to take this into consideration, not just reading, right?
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Actually, I hadn't thought of that. You were saying before about like making sure everything, stays consistent and all that. Do you work like with a cat tool and use a translation memory to help with that? You do?
Yeah, we do. I think
everyone is just nodding here.
Nodding.
I just want to say it out loud because the podcast listeners won't be able to see the nodding.
There was a case. There was a case that one of our clients, the client didn't know what a cat tool was or how it could help the production of the games. They usually had the games translated right in the PDF files, and people who translate stuff, that translating stuff straight on the PDF using the notes tool is a nightmare. It can be a nightmare, right? So especially in long projects. So we had to educate the client and say, listen, we know you work this way, but if you consider, working with a cat tool, or at least sending us the files that can be used in a cat tool, it would make things easier for you, better for us, and better for everybody too.
We have clients who they set the project for us on cat tools, and we have clients who don't know what a cat tool is, and they don't care. They just want the job done fast and cheap. So we have this. Sometimes we receive and the project, and we say, "Oh, do you have in this format the file so we can work on a cat tool? If you know what it is, okay. If you don't know, please." It's just how we work, and it's consistent because we use the vocabulary there inside, and we try to keep it consistent. We keep the memory for other projects, so it's much easier. We can't live without the cat tool nowadays.
Yeah, it makes sense. So do you work like with a mix of agencies and direct clients, or because I'd imagine like an agency would probably be used to working with a cat tool and sending you those sort of projects, but do you get a mix of agency and direct clients?
In our case, we work straight with the clients, so they don't care if we use or not a cat tool, and we just ask them if we have the formats that are easy for us to, the files which are easier for us to work on. But we don't work with agencies. I don't know about Anikó, maybe.
Okay.
In this area, I only work with agencies.
That's different. That's different.
Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah. Here in Brazil, the board game market is considered too small for agencies to be interested in them, and so the game creators, publishers, sometimes the license holders, they contact translators directly. It's different for video games. Video games, there are agencies who take care of this, but board games is not there yet.
Okay. Anikó, do you find that like there's a few agencies for you that offer board game or have board game translation clients then?
Yes, so there is so there are some agencies that do video games and board games and everything. So they would offer a comprehensive service to anyone who needs any translations. And I think there are a few agencies specialized in board games. So they would do only games, either only video games or board games or just board games.
Okay, because I imagine like it's one of those things that often needs to be translated into a lot of different languages. I mean, obviously it depends, but like Ivar and Luciana, like do you ever collaborate with other translators who can also translate it into other languages, or do you just sort of let the client find their other translators for the other languages, or how does it sort of work?
It hasn't happened like that yet. What has happened is that sometimes if there's something that is like a point in the work that we cannot progress or that we need more clarification, we ask the manager, say, so we're having a problem here. And say, so, okay, I'll check with people, with the teams in Italy, in Spain, in Poland or whatever on the country, and let's see what solutions they've got. But the contact is not direct; it's always through the project managers.
Yeah, and we sometimes, if the company requires another language, we try to talk with our friends, our community, and some people we trust, because there are good professionals and bad professionals everywhere. Yeah, so. But we don't. It's just English and Portuguese for us.
So, for example, one of those games we mentioned before that we translated into English, it was originally a Spanish game. So we had the Spanish version, the Brazilian version, and then we had these two languages. And from that, we had to build the English localization. But we did not get in touch with any other teams or people who had translated it or who would be translating it into other languages.
Yeah, something that happened to us more than once. It's a game that it's in another language like German or even Polish, and then they translate into English, and we get the English reference, but the translation is horrible. So we have a massive problem because the English version we can't understand it. So we have problems in translation, problems in the gaming also. So it was a huge problem for us. And we asked the company, and they said, oh, this is a Polish game or this is a German game. So somebody did it, we don't know who. And we said, we have to fix it first because it's not comprehensive for us to translate. So that's a problem we had in the past. So
I can imagine that's kind of difficult. Is it quite common then that a board game might get translated then into English, and then the English gets sent out to like to be translated into other languages, or is that because that's what often happens with movies and TV shows and stuff? If it's like coming from a language, like it's quite a lot with Dutch when it's going from Dutch. If they want it in like, I don't know, Korean or something, then it often goes into English, and then they'll have like English to Korean translators. Is it the same sort of thing with board games?
Yeah, I would say, yeah.
Yes, some countries, studios or game creators in countries like Germany, France, and others, they have been, even in Brazil here, they have been producing good games, and then these games are translated to English, and the English translation is used as the base to translate it, to localize it for the rest of the world. Usually it works, but sometimes, as Luciana said, it doesn't, right? We spent like 2 hellish weeks with one of these cases that was badly translated into English, and then that's what we had to work with. We even told the client, dude, this needs a rewrite, you know. It would be better for everybody if this was just rewritten, you know, from scratch. We know our translation is not good, but that's because the source text had this, and this other 100 and something problems.
Yeah. Something different we did was to translate from Portuguese from Portugal to Portuguese in Brazilian Portuguese. And it was a very interesting experience for us because we had to get in touch with our far mother language in Portugal, source language in Portugal, which is completely different. So, but it was cool. It was fun to read and adapt to Brazilian Portuguese. So it was really cool. Our only experience until now.
It was really fun. You know, it was really fun because if you read the text, and if a Brazilian person reads the text in European Portuguese, some of the terms, some of the structures, they either sound funny or inappropriate, right? So we had to adapt that to a language you could, for example, you could read that to your mother, and she would be fine with that.
Yeah, because in English, like everyone would understand, but in Portuguese from, I don't know, Angola in Africa, for example, they speak Portuguese, but a totally different Portuguese. So we had to have the localization for all Portugueses, if that exists.
Yeah, because I guess it's also like the cultural, not just the language differences, but the culture as well, because it's a completely different culture. I mean, I've done adaptations from like US English into UK English, and I mean, I'm guessing it's not as big of a difference. Like a lot of board games in the UK, I think, are just the American English versions, but like there's still a lot of changes. There's still a lot of changes that to be made, and especially the cultural references. If you've got, you know, jokes and things, and like, you know, you mentioned a president or something. Like, I mean, I feel like, yeah, maybe people know about the US president or whatever, but like they're not going to know things to the same extent and get the same references necessarily. So
exactly,
makes sense. But yeah, okay, well, do you want to tell me what is your favourite project that you've worked on? Board game localization project. Anikó, do you want to go first?
So I have two I would mention. One of them is the one I posted about on LinkedIn, where the whole game had to be localized because it was language based. So there were prompts, and the prompts had to all... so basically you had to guess the word. But in order to make the other person guess the word, you could only use words that started with a certain letter. So this was a creative editing project game. And so basically I had to take the literal translation and make the instruction fun as well, because the original English also had lots of alliteration. So I had to make sure that the Hungarian had a lot of alliteration. And I also had to go through all the words and make sure that it is possible to explain the meaning of these words with words that alliterate. So that was really fun. And the other one was just a little game for kids that was with cats, and I like cats, and it was really cute. So
cute.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds lovely. Yeah. What about you, Luciana? What's been your favorite project?
Difficult, because we have worked in, I don't know, I lost the count of projects we worked. But as Anikó said, we recently worked in a version for English, like a naughty, dirty card game.
Okay.
Yeah, and a drinking game also, which was really fun to usually when I get the project first, because we work together, me and Ivar, I try to think about the vocabulary first to set the references, the research, because it takes a lot of time to stop and search. And it was really fun. I was laughing all the time, like, oh my god, what can I translate into that? Like,
but you had some great ideas that I wouldn't have thought of them. You know, if I was.
Thanks.
This looks good. This is good. This is good.
Like it was really funny. It's like Anikó said, that you had to complete. You know, it's like Cards Against Humanity, like something like that. You know, you have the black card and you have to complete with a white card. So It's a and there was a drinking game also that you have like say something, and if you don't do something, you have to get a shot, and it was really fun to imagine people playing that. I had a lot of fun working,
Yeah. Do you ever like test out the game? Like you finish translating it and you're like, right, let's test this out ourselves and make sure it works.
Not yet. I'm waiting for the weekend. So I can test this specifically the drinking one, but sometimes we do. We buy the game. We ask for the producers like, oh my God, I need a copy.
The projects I really enjoyed working on was a game called Unmatched: The Battle of Legends. It's a miniature game, and this one we got to work with a base set and 3 expansions all at once. And this was the game that we had to convince the clients that we could do it better with a CAS tool. Like the clients had no idea what a CAS tool was, and they were surprised. The client was reluctant to send the editable files, like the IDML files for the layout, because sometimes piracy, the intellectual property piracy, is a problem here. The games are expensive. People, they want to get them all, but they don't have the money to buy them all. So this is a problem. So the client was very reluctant. They say, okay, we can send you the editable files, but can you sign an NDA for us? I said, of course. This is really
all the time.
This is how we work. Right? And so, but then they realized that they didn't have to send the restart the layout process after the translation was done. So it would be done in the working files for them. And the game was interesting. It had several interesting figures from literature, like, for example, you can play as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You can play as Alice from Alice in the Wonderland, and what else? Robin Hood and Bigfoot. What else? Little Red Riding Hood. Some of them, not Aladdin, but Sinbad from the Arabian Nights. You get Sherlock Holmes also is there with Watson. This game was interesting because we had to look into literary references to see how some terms had been translated in our language. So we would try to keep it consistent, keep it uniform with whatever people could have read before, right? So that was nice. Also, there was another game called Detective, right? We have here a classic game called Clue that was translated into Portuguese, and the name was called Detective. And this is not the same game. we did a new version, and very nice investigative game. Could talk about a couple other games, but they are still under NDA. So, there were a couple other projects, but no, I would love to. But one of them, people who know it, but an expansion of a very famous board game that has zombies in it. If you know it, you know it.
Yeah. I think one we had a lot of fun also was Sherlock Holmes, Consulting Detective, because the vocabulary was used was English from the 16th...
19th.
So 18th, yeah. So it was really challenging for the translators, and we worked in the proofreading of it, and we had to work together as a huge team because there are some newspapers, you have to read the news to find clues, and it was really cute, really cute because we didn't know about the answers of the clues, so we had to guess everybody together as a team, and we were like, oh, okay, wait for this answer because we have to read everything to find out what it is, where we have to go. It was really fun. Yeah, it was really fun.
You have to work it all out.
Yeah, there was a huge map from London in the Victorian London, and some of the places that you can go to, they had to be translated. Other places they could not be translated. So we had to be in touch with the other members of the team because otherwise, things would be a real mess.
Yeah, makes sense. If you're able to get all of the board games that you have translated, because I feel like if I translated board games, I'd want to go out and buy it. I feel like it's different for me doing TV series and stuff. sometimes I'll watch it back like with my boyfriend or something. I'll be like, watch this, like I've subtitled this, but it's like I can't, I don't get to have it on my shelf like, and, like
yeah, it's impossible to have all of them. It's impossible. There's no available space.
Yeah, Luciana. But your husband, he always makes space, right? He finds space in your apartment.
Yeah,
you know how it's like.
He does. He's like a girl in the shopping mall coming with a hidden bag, like, oh, I bought a board game. It's a card game. It's a small one. We can put it here.
You must have the best board game nights at your house.
Here's like a store. Here's like a store,
But sometimes we would love to have the game, the box, or other times you translate the game. You say, okay, it's nice, but I really don't like this one. I wouldn't like to play it, or maybe once just to see how it goes. But this is not really my style, right? Mm-hmm. It happens.
No, it makes sense. You're not gonna. It's like not every single project is going to be the kind of game that you would personally play. So. It makes sense, just like me subtitling a movie. A lot of them are not movies I would ever just watch. Anikó, I would love to know, what would be your absolute dream board game project? If a client emailed you right now with a project, what would be the dream?
So whenever I go back to Hungary, we have these board game nights with my brother. You should see his cupboard full of puzzles. It's like a store, really. Yeah. So he really likes strategy games. So it would be cool to translate something, get it, and then play together. This is what I worked on. And also his kids are getting bigger, and they are already starting to play board games. So it would be also fun to have something that I could play with them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cute.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah.
What about you, Luciana? What would be your dream project?
I don't know. I don't have I've been a geek since I was born. So we worked on some franchise stuff from day one. So I think I've worked on things I wanted to work. So I'm pretty satisfied with maybe something like. A franchise I love. I don't know about Constantine or something like that, but I don't know if there is something like this yet. Actually, as Anikó said, I'm playing a lot of party games with friends because after COVID pandemic we can join. So every time we go to a barbecue or something, we take a box of cards and just go having fun. So it's. That's what we are into now.
What about you?
Well, that's kind of a tough call. I've been thinking here, but probably where I could work directly with the game designers, not at the stage of only the translation, but also to be a part of the creation process. But to answer the question, right, I like role-playing games with shared narrative mechanics. So probably one of that. There's one that I really love called Primetime Adventures. Don't know if they're going to have a fourth edition, but maybe. There's two older games that would have been great to work on that I liked. Frag by Steve Jackson Games, and this is when they try to recreate a shooter game from a video game and on a board, and it's really fun and really fast paced. And games like Doom or Quake or whatever. This is from the beginning of the century, right? So yeah, I'm that old. And also there's Crimson Skies. Crimson Skies was a video game, but it started out as a board game, like a strategy game with an airplane combat. Right? And in this course, we are teaching the board game localization. One of the games that we propose for the students to have as a project is a free game, but it's really fun and it's really it's cute. It's called Quests Over Coffee, right? And it's like you go to a coffee shop, and this coffee shop serves coffee, and it offers you quests, and you have to do these quests. Like it's a card game for one person. Like we can play like 20 minutes or half an hour. And as I said, this is a free game. And we're going to ask our students to try their hand at localizing that because it has cultural references, it has jokes, it has It refers, for example, some of the cards they have lyrics to songs in English that were popular, so we have to try to, if they were to translate them into Portuguese, they would have to try to find maybe a song that talks about the same topic, or maybe something, a quote for a book, a soap opera, something that would really help the players to make a connection with the card to something else.
Yeah, it does sound interesting. So as we sort of get towards the end of this episode, do you each want to share any advice you have for anyone who is thinking that they would love to get into board game translation?
Study. Study hard. Be curious, and you have to research a lot of references that were done to continue in your job, to work on a cat tool, and so you have to study a lot. You have to spend time like watching things, series, films, reading a lot, graphic novels and stuff, because you need reference. You need to be a little bit of a geek to do it, because otherwise you're going to feel a little bit, lost. Some people say, oh, I want to translate games, but are you a player? No, I'm not. So you can do it, but it's going to be a little hard for you, to do it just like guessing things. For us who play, it's a little bit easier because we are used to the vocabulary, mechanics, and so on. So I think my advice would be study hard.
Yeah, it also for especially for translators from a more technical background who want to go into board game localization. Translating the rules of the game, it would come naturally for a more technically oriented translator, but sometimes to translate the content, you have to learn to be flexible. You have to learn to accept that some things, some cultural references or some jokes or whatever, they are not going to be translated the same way. Sometimes you have to recreate that from scratch. And I know some people who have a hard time, adapting their mindsets to translating so freely, let's say that. So you're going off the rails like a crazy train, as Ozzy Osbourne would put it, or something, and then go back to the track, to the track, of course. But what we see in our work here is that you have to be more technical. You have to be really faithful to the original content, especially on the rules, and make them accessible, like Anikó said. But then you have to have a healthy dose of creativity with the cultural, with the, let's say, the fluff or the environmental or the ambience cards or whatever is not related directly to the rules.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think I would add a practical tip that if you can try to look at parallel text, so look at the English instructions of a video game and the instructions in your own language of the same game, and that could help finding out how certain things are worded or what kind of vocabulary you would need to use. So that could be my one tip.
Yeah, and you, depending on the language that you're translating into, you have to be concise. Sometimes you don't have space, you don't have room for long words or long sentences. English is a very practical and language with short words. That's how it works. And Portuguese, for example, usually a text, if you translate a text from English into Portuguese, it increases in volume by 20 or 30%, so you have to take that into consideration. Some of the games we translate have very small cards. You can't go verbose on it.
Yeah, I will also tell people to participate on game jams. It's a very good strategy for knowing how it works. There are some print and play games on the internet nowadays. You can work on that too, and make a portfolio for you, so you can get into the business, to the market, maybe showing your client what you do, showing the agencies some adventures you had.
Sounds like some good tips. I mean, if my listeners have any more questions for any of you, or they wanted to get in touch and, chat about what you do or anything like that, what is the best way to contact you? Anikó, do you want to go first?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn or you can check out my website. It's paprikatranslations.co.uk. I trade under the name Paprika Translation, so that's maybe that's easier to write than my name. Yeah, I have these accents in my name, so yeah, I think it's easier to write Paprika.
Okay, I'll put it in the show notes anyway, so they can click on the the link and not have to type anything out. Luciana and Ivar, have you got a website for your business or something?
We do, but so far our website is only in Portuguese because most of our clients are here in Brazil. But we have to start localizing our own websites into English to get clients from abroad. Still, the address is www.rook.net.br, or we have an email for both Luciana and I get this email if anyone wants to write us. It's hello@rook.net.br, and we are also on most social networks.
Instagram,
LinkedIn.
Yeah. LinkedIn.
No, not Facebook. Not Twitter. Twitter is
no.
Too violent.
We don't. Yeah. And it's funny, Brazilians don't like Twitter.
Some of them do, but these people are really, really aggressive.
Yeah. So we are not there.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm not on Twitter either, so I don't really know what goes on over there. So it's good. I'll put everyone's links in the show notes, so if anyone wants to get in touch, they can just click the button. Makes it a bit easier. But yeah, thank you all so much for coming on my podcast and chatting about what you do. I've learned a lot today, and it's been really, really interesting.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah. Thanks for having us, guys.
Thanks for having us.
It was a pleasure. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode on board game localization. I hope you enjoyed it and found it as insightful as I did. Thanks again to Anikó, Ivar and Luciana for joining me. Head to the show notes to get in touch with today's guests, and if you have any questions or comments about the podcast in general, send an email to meetthetranslator@gmail.com.